And we're going to start in verse 1. It says, "But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work." Dear Father, thank you for all you've given to us. I pray that you fill me with the Holy Ghost. Lord, give me the words that you want me to say, Lord, and help each and every person here get something from the message we can take and apply in our lives. Lord, help us to give us a vision of what you want done here at Sycamore Baptist Church. Thank you for all you've given to us. In your name I pray. Amen. I want to point out three things from the book of Nehemiah. Three things that will help build Sycamore Baptist Church. First of all, number one, it's faith. We need faith. That faith will build this church. Nehemiah chapter 4, look at verse 19 with me. It says, "And I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, The work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall one from another. In what place therefore ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared." So here we have Nehemiah. Nehemiah, he has seen God do some great things in his life. Nehemiah, he's just an average man. He lives back under the king in another land, a faraway land. And he has some messengers come, and they tell him about Jerusalem. And we'll see later on how it gave him a burden, and he wept over Jerusalem, and he prayed and he fasted over Jerusalem. And then one day he goes before the king, and the king looks at him. Now Nehemiah hears the drinker. He tested the drinks before he gave it to the king. So if there's any poison, Nehemiah was the first to go, and the king would be fine. Nehemiah, he comes before the king, and he's white. Something's different about him. The king's looking at him, and he sees it's not poison. Nothing's affecting him. He's not sick, but he sees that he's been weeping. He's sad. Something's bothered him, and he talks to Nehemiah about it. And so Nehemiah, he talks to the king there. He tells him what's going on in Jerusalem, and then he asks if he can have leave and go to Jerusalem and work. And the king looks at him, and he took pleasure in Nehemiah. He sees what Nehemiah is trying to do. He has such a burden for his home, and so he lets Nehemiah go. Nehemiah takes it a step further. He asks the king if the king would be willing to donate some materials, donate lumber, some materials for the work to build. And the king, he signed some decrees, he signed some papers, he gave it to Nehemiah. This king donated to the work of Nehemiah. Nehemiah, he's seen God do some great things. He softened that king's heart. The king allowed Nehemiah to go to Jerusalem. The king donated. He freely gave resources for the work. Nehemiah has seen God do some great things. Now he's in Jerusalem. They're building. They're trying to do the work of God. They're trying to do a great thing. And they're surrounded by the enemy. And the enemy is harassing them. They're threatening them. And Nehemiah, he's seen God work in the past. He's had experiences where he just trusted God. And now here's a harder situation. Nehemiah can look back, but Nehemiah, he just has faith in God. He says in that verse, he says, "Our God shall fight for us." For Sycamore Baptist Church to grow, for it to do great things for God, we have to have faith. We have to have faith for several things. First of all, we have to have faith to give for God's work. Malachi 3, verses 8 through 12, it says, "Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, Wherein have we robbed thee? in tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground. Neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts. What tithing is, that's 10% of your income that should be given faithfully to God. Here he's talking to these people and he says, hey, you've robbed me. You've robbed God. Well, how have we robbed God? Because you're not giving tithes. You're not giving what God's given back to you. You're not giving a tenth back to Him. He wants us to do that as Christians. He tells us how to give in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 7 and 8. It says, every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. He says, hey, you're having problems? It's because you're not tithing. Give to God. And you give to God, I'll bless you. I want to do great things for you. He says back in Malachi, prove me. Test me. Just try me. Try it out for a couple weeks and see if I will not bless you. I'll open the windows of heaven. I'll pour out blessings on you. You can't even receive it. You're not going to have enough room to even hold all these blessings. I remember when God started working on my heart about tithing. I'd been out of work for a while there in Florida, and life, it was hard. My wife, she went and she worked, and we barely made ends meet. It came about January 2012. I'm making my New Year's resolutions, and I'm thinking about it. And I'd come across this passage and a couple others like it, and I said, we're not tithing. We've not been doing what we ought to be doing. And I'm thinking, I can't tithe. I don't have the money to tithe. I don't have, I can't give God something I don't have. I've got to make my bills. I've got to, God can understand my situation. No, we just got to obey God. We just have to have faith. So that at the beginning of that year, I'm sitting down, I'm looking at everything, and I come to the realization, either God is who He says He is, and I can trust Him, and I can look back. I look back at everything we'd gone through in Uganda, through the terrorists, how God's protected my parents, how God has protected me when I was sick, and my dad's racing in the middle of the night to Kampala, 4 hours away to a hospital, driving in the dark, and you're not supposed to go anywhere at night. I'm seeing how God has protected me, how faith has preserved us before, and I'm thinking, God's got to be who He says He is. And the beginning of that year, I started tithing. My wife and I, we started tithing, and at first, it was tight. It was not an easy thing to do. But once we started tithing, within a couple weeks, I had 2 different calls come in from work, and I hadn't been following up on these people. They came from people I hadn't even met yet, or someone I've worked for before years ago. He's calling me up, asking me if I need a job. A couple times we were in the 10 days of grace for car payments, but each time God provided a solution just a few days before we had those fines, or before we started getting into trouble. In February, the work started pouring in. I mean, God was just blessing with so many different job opportunities, and I was doing side work here, and I had a couple jobs going. I had 2 guys that were fighting over me, trying to get me to work for them, and God was just blessing. I had done some work the year before, towards the end of the year before, for Groupon. It's where a bunch of people get together, and it's a kind of a coupon service. And I had done a lot of pressure washing throughout Orlando. Well, the end of 2011, I'd had some problems with Groupon. They didn't pay me what they ought to have because they get a percentage, and I'm struggling with them. This is before I started tithing. I'm struggling with them, trying to get just what is mine, what I've earned, what belongs to me. After 2012 starts, I'm tithing. It's about the middle of February. I get a check from Groupon for twice what I should have gotten. The check was doubled. And I called him just to make sure. I wanted to make sure I was right with God. And I said, hey, I've got this check. It was, it was supposed to be this much. It's been doubled. I just want to make sure I do right by y'all. And they said, we know we gave you double. That's fine. We're sorry for the trouble that we caused you. That's amazing. Who gives extra money? That was great. That was a blessing from God. I started working for a man. He didn't even know what he wanted. I worked painting a room. I spent 31 hours in that one room. I go in one day, I start painting. At the end of the day, he comes in. He's like, man, that looks pretty good. The next day he comes in and he's got a different color of paint. And he says, I want you to use this on this wall and this wall and this wall. So I do what he tells me to do. I come in the next day and he says, you know what? That second color, it looks great, but it doesn't match the first. Here, he gives me paint, and he has me paint the rest of the room. And I spent 31 hours in that room. And I've got my time card. I'm looking at it. I added it all up. And I go to his office, and I'm kind of, I'm hoping this guy's going to pay me. I got the job through Craigslist. And I go and I give it to him. And he looks at it. He says, 31 hours? That's it? He says, okay, no problem. We go, he calls his wife, and we had agreed on $12 an hour. He tells his wife, hey, go ahead and give him an extra $1 per hour. Again, who gives away money like that? That was God's blessings because I started tithing. I'm there in that office, and they had a deep freezer. This guy liked hunting and fishing and all sorts of stuff. And he says, are you hungry? Or, hey, do you need some food or anything? And I had smelled something in the kitchen. I had a youth activity I had to get to. And I said, I'd love to stay. It smells good, but I've got to be somewhere. He says, no, I'm not talking about that. He opens that deep freezer. He grabs, this big old tote. He starts reaching in. When I got home, I couldn't fit it all in my freezer. I proved God, and that verse came true. I didn't have enough room to store it all. He gave bacon, 2 things of bacon, pork, sausage, buffalo meat, a huge pork tenderloin, shark meat, eggs, a whole chicken. God just blessed. We were able to pay my wife's car off in that first couple months. All of that was a result because I had faith. I obeyed God's word. I started tithing. For Sycamore Baptist Church to do anything, we've got to have faith. Faith, it's required to be used of God. Hebrews 11:6 says, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. It pleases God when we have faith. And that's the whole reason we're here, to please God. Revelation 4:11, thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive honor and glory and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. We were created to please God. But we can't please God if we don't have faith. 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 4 through 7, it says, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these ye might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Note this. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue. Notice, it says faith first. It says diligently, add to your faith virtue. Now listen to the rest of this and I'll explain what I'm getting at. And to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. Faith is at the beginning. Faith is the foundation of our Christian life. We've got to have faith to please God. You look at Gideon, and we talked about this last week, and I think Pastor hit it on Wednesday. 22,000 men went home because they were afraid of the Midianites. Why were they afraid? It was an issue with their faith. These men missed out on a great victory because they lacked faith. We've got to have faith if we want to do something here at Sycamore Baptist Church. It's required that we have faith. So 3 things that will build this church. Number 1, it's faith. Number 2, it's a burden. Turn back with me to Nehemiah chapter 1. Nehemiah chapter 1. As we read these first 5 verses, I want you to see the burden that Nehemiah has here. Verse 1, it says, the words of Nehemiah, the son of Hekaliah, and it came to pass in the month of Chislev, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan the palace, that Hanani, one of my brethren, came, and he and certain men of Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept and mourned certain days, and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven, and said, I beseech thee, O Lord God of heaven, the great and terrible God that keepeth covenant and mercy for them that love him and observe his commandments. We see here Nehemiah's burden for his people, for his city, for Jerusalem. It caused him to weep. Caused him to spend time in prayer, talking to God. It caused him to fast, go without food. For Sycamore Baptist Church to anything, we've got to have a burden. We got to have a burden for the lost. When's the last time you wept for someone you knew wasn't saved? Do you pray faithfully for those God has placed in your life that haven't trusted Christ? Have you ever fasted for the power of Christ in your life and winning someone to Christ? That's the whole reason Jesus Christ came to earth, to seek and to save that which was lost. Luke 19:10, for the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. I talked to a Christian man about a year ago. I was talking to him. He told me, I don't feel that my ministry is to the lost. It's to those that are already saved. And it shocked me. I thought, what in the world? This guy, it told me a couple things about him. First of all, he's an immature Christian. He's not walking close to God. Because God's burden was to reach and to save. Jesus Christ's burden was to reach and to save that which was lost. And this guy says, my ministry is not really to the lost. No, God has placed each and every one of us in circles, in a circle of influence. Where you work, you're to have a Christian testimony. You're to be a witness for Christ where you work. Your family, you're to be a witness for Christ. They ought to know you as a Christian. We ought to be a witness at work. Now, when I say that, we can't beat people over the head with the Bible. We can't steal our boss's time. But our testimony ought to be a shining light. Your coworkers, they ought to know that you go to church. They ought to know that you don't swear, you don't cuss, you don't tell dirty jokes. They ought to see that you're the hardest worker there. And so when they have an issue or they're going through hard times, they ought to know that they can come to you to pray for them. You may not get the opportunity to witness like you'd like to witness door to door, but you may be able to give them a verse here and a verse there. Work on them, let them see your testimony. You know, as Christians at work, we're given such an opportunity. They ought to know you as a Christian and see you over time, your Christian testimony. You look at Christians today, or people that call themselves Christians, and they're not giving a very good picture of Christ. They walk in, they have their music in, and they unplug their headphones, and it's just blaring rock music. I was working at Steak and Shake when I was in Florida, and this group came in, and I saw on one of their shirts a cross on it. And these teenagers and young adults came in, and their pants are sagging down here. The boys and the girls, their pants are sagging. They sit down, their mouths are filthy, they're laughing at dirty jokes, they're blaring that music. And I just got a kick out of it. The guy has a cross on his shirt, so I talked to him about it. I said, hey, I see a cross on your shirt. You all go to church anywhere? And they said, oh yeah, we're the youth group from such and such a church. And I'm thinking, wow, you're giving Christ such a bad name. You're giving Christians such a bad name. We don't need any more Christians like that. We ought to be Christians that give Christ a good name, such a testimony that our coworkers, they can look at us, they see, wow, something is different with that person. I want what they have. Sure, they may make fun of us when we go. They may make fun of us because we don't hang out with them. We don't drink what they drink. We don't listen to what they listen to. We don't talk like they talk. But they'll develop a respect for you. And it may be months later, it may be years later. They're going to go through something and they see you've stood the test of time. You really believe what you say you believe. You act like something they've never seen before. And when they have a problem, they'll come to you and say, hey, would you pray for me? I know you go to church, and I know I haven't been such a good friend, but will you pray for me? We ought to have such a testimony. We ought to have a burden for the lost, but we ought to have a burden for the unsaved here in Jackson, Michigan. It's okay to have a burden for missions, but we also have to have a burden for here in Jackson, Michigan. We ought to have a burden for our families. Such a burden that, like Nehemiah, it caused them to pray. It caused them to fast. It caused them to weep. We ought to want to see great things in the lives of our family and our neighbors and our coworkers and our friends, to where we're weeping for them. God, this person, this nephew, this brother, I know they're not saved, but Lord, please get a hold of his heart. We ought to be praying for them. We ought to be fasting over them, just spending so much time praying for these people that God has placed in our life to be a witness to. We have to have faith. We have to have a burden. And we have to have unity. Turn with me to Nehemiah chapter 3. Nehemiah chapter 3. We're just going to look at 3 verses, but this whole chapter is like this. We're going to start in verse 2. It says, And next unto him builded the men of Jericho, and next to them builded Zaccur, the son of Imri. But the fish gate did the sons of Hassenaah build, who also laid the beams thereof, and set up the doors thereof, and locks thereof, and the bars thereof. And next unto them repaired Meremoth, the son of Urijah, the son of Koz. The next unto them repaired Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabeel. And next unto them repaired Zadok, the son of Baana. So this whole chapter is, and next to them repaired these people. And next to them repaired these people. And next to them repaired these people. All of these people, they were working together in unity. They're wanting to do something together for Christ. Here at Sycamore Baptist Church, we ought to be no different. We ought to want to do things for Christ. We ought to want to work together in unity. In Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 16 through 18, we see that unity, it brought protection. Nehemiah 4, 16 through 18, it says, And it came to pass from that time forth, that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons, and the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They which builded on the wall, and they that bare burdens with those that laded, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, every one had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. Here we see Nehemiah, the men here in this passage, they're building. They've been threatened. They've been harassed. They're up there. In one hand, they've got a brick. One's laying mortar. He's got a hand on his sword. He lays a brick. This other man, he's laying mortar. He's got his hand on his sword. They're ready for a fight. They're working together. They're ready to defend together. And that unity, it brought protection. That unity, it kept them safe. Here at Sycamore Baptist Church, we need protection. We're about to start a campaign dedicated to God's greatest work, winning souls to Christ. This makes me think of when my pastor interned at a church in Selmer, Tennessee. There's a church there. It had some issues, but they were working through them. They called my dad to pastor that church, and he didn't pastor it, but he interned it for a while they were looking for a pastor. And after several months, he started showing Operation Go in Sunday school class. Now, what Operation Go is, it's something similar to what category number 3 is going to be doing for the 13-week campaign. It's a series of videos put out by this guy who he is a master soul winner. He is very good at it, and he teaches how to soul win and how to answer the questions. He shows the verses you need to memorize. It's a very in-depth, very good class on soul winning. And Pastor, he wanted to train the people how to be soul winners there in Selmer, Tennessee. So he started showing these videos on Sunday mornings during Sunday school. And when he started doing that, there was all sorts of problems that came to the surface. And why is that? That's because Satan didn't like what was happening. Satan didn't want them learning how to win souls to Christ. Satan didn't want them saving people out of hell. So he attacked. He started doing things within the church and causing all sorts of problems. We're about to start this 13-week soul winning campaign. We've got to be together in unity to have that protection. Satan hates that. He's going to be looking for trouble. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." We've got to be working together in unity. We've got to be praying for one another. We've got to be encouraging one another. Hey, if I want discouragement, I can pick any day of the week, go out into the world, and I'll get plenty of that. We ought to be encouraging one another. Church ought to be a place where we get encouragement from our brothers and sisters in Christ. We ought to work together in unity. Satan's going to try and attack from every side that he can. He's going to try and stir up marital problems, old temptations, discouragement during this campaign. He's going to, one thing about discouragement, Caleb and I, we've been going out for the past several weeks just knocking on doors day after day. And there's some discouraging things that have happened while we're out there. We're out there, one person, he hears what we say, he sees the track, and he shouts out, "Hail Satan!" And he slams the door. Another person, we go to the door, and they say, "I'm a devil worshiper, get off my property." We go up to other places, and some people are real nice. We start talking to them, and they start talking about some church experience they had before. And as we're talking to them, I realize, wow, they're not saved. But I ask them, if you were to die today, are you 100% sure you'd go to heaven? And they're not saved. It's so obvious by their answer. But they're so confident. "Oh yes, I'm going to heaven." No, you're not, because you're not following the Bible. And it's discouraging. We've been working on people for so long since we started this, and they haven't even come to church yet. But the Bible says, "Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season ye shall reap if ye faint not." We ought to keep going out at it. And pretty soon we're going to start reaping. And you're going to start seeing some people that we've been working on for months. And Satan, he doesn't like that. He's going to use whatever discouragement he can. He's going to try and cause family problems. He's going to try and cause work problems. But when he attacks, we ought to reply like Nehemiah replied to Sanballat and Tobiah. Turn with me to Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah chapter 6. Starting in verse 1, it says, "Now it came to pass, when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Ono. And then it says, but they thought to do me mischief." So he's doing the work of the Lord. He's building up Jerusalem. He's working hard on the walls. And these guys, they send a messenger unto him saying, "Hey, stop what you're doing just real quick. We want to meet with you. Come visit us in this small little village over here." And they're going to do him mischief. They're going to harm him. They might try and kill him. And Nehemiah refuses. Let's look at what he says. It says, "And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease whilst I leave it and come down to you? Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner." You know, Satan's going to try and distract us during this soul winning campaign, but we ought to have a similar answer. Hey, I'm doing a great work. I'm doing a great thing for God. Why should I stop this because of this issue? Why should I stop this because of that? We ought not to get distracted. We ought to continue the work. One last thing, that unity, it brought protection, but it brought accomplishment. They finished that wall in 52 days. That's a major feat. 52 days from start to finish, they built that wall and they completed it. I'm excited about this 13-week soul winning campaign. I really am. And as Caleb and I and even Brother Howell go out, almost every time we've gone out, we've seen people saved. And it's exciting. I'm super excited to see what God is doing. But I'm even more excited. I can't even imagine what Sycamore Baptist Church will accomplish. All of us together, working together in unity during this 13 campaign. Between the surveys, the soul winning, the witnessing, the praying. God's got to do some great things. So like Nehemiah, let's put our hands to the work. 3 things that will build this church: faith, a burden, and unity. Nehemiah 4:7 says, "So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work."